Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Runewords. Today we're going to be looking at the rune word Hand of Justice. So Hand of Justice is a relatively interesting rune word which can be combined with Dragon to have some very interesting effects. It can be made in all weapons, basically. And I have a smattering of weapons here. A Berserker's Axe with 4 sockets. I have a Phase Blade with Superior, 15% enhanced. And I also have a Catechus, a Caduceus with +3 Conviction, +3 Fanaticism, and +3 Zeal. Because why not? If we're going to be making this, well, a lot of times it does get made for a Paladin. And a Caduceus is a pretty interesting choice if you can happen to find one with the right plus to skills. Now, this recipe is Sur Cham Amn and Low. And it does have a level requirement of level 67 due to the runes required for this recipe. So it is a relatively high recipe. So what is the best base for a Hand of Justice? Well, there's a lot of things to consider. Obviously, if you're considering a Caduceus, this is a interesting base for the plus to skills. If you are not a Paladin, then this is probably not the base that you're going to make your weapon in. The Phase Blade is, of course, the fastest item. It is definitely going to be one of the quickest bases. It does have the very nice effect of course, being indestructible, which makes it very nice for that particular purpose as well. But there are some other considerations besides just simply the indestructibility and the quickness of the blade. The Berserker's Axe also offers a very, very nice effect of a high, very, very high range. So we have 3 different choices here. We have a very fast, indestructible weapon. We have a very long-range weapon, which can hit monsters from very far away. If you were unaware, the Berserker's Axe is literally the longest range weapon pretty much in the game for one-handed, not two-handed. And then, of course, we have the Caduceus, which is very nice for the plus to skills. If you could find a very, very nice 4-socket Caduceus, you could make a very, very nice Hand of Justice. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this in the Berserker's Axe and the Caduceus. We're actually going to forego the Phase Blade. The damage on the Phase Blade at 35 to 40 is very similar to the damage on the Caduceus at 37 to 43. So the damage on these two is going to be very, very similar. The only thing that you're going to see on the Phase Blade from me making it is that it's indestructible, basically. That's the only real benefit to that. So we're going to go ahead and put these in here. We got Sur Cham Amn and Low, and then Sur Cham Amn and Low. Now, Holy Fire is not a particularly high damage ability. It's important to note that unless you are a Paladin with the synergies or a Sorceress with Fire Mastery, the damage on these is actually quite pathetic. And let me bring my my decks up just enough so I can put these on, and I'm going to show you. So right now I have 376 to 531 damage, and that is with Dragon, with the 2 Dragon items, by the way. So let me take off the Dragon items. And I'm going to give you an idea here. So right now I have 18 to 80 damage, right? So let's go ahead and put on the Hand of Justice. Of course, it does have a pretty nice physical damage here of 144 to 168. So you can see my damage goes up to 563 to 750. The Dragon Shield also has level 14 Holy Fire on it. So we have level 16 Holy Fire on Hand of Justice. We have level 14 Holy Fire on the Shield. We put on the Shield and our damage goes up to 927 to 1,170. We can also put on the Dragon Armor, because Dragon can be made in both Armor and Shield. That's going to give us another 14 to Holy Fire, which is going to bring us up to a total of 1,321 to 1,615. It's not a lot of fire damage. Most of that is actually the physical damage coming from the weapon. When you take off the weapon, you'll notice that my that is strictly fire damage right there, pretty much. So if we want to beef this up, what we have to do is we actually have to build the character around the Holy Fire ability, which is right here. But we don't actually put points in the Holy Fire. That's right. So what we're going to do is you're going to actually put some points into Conviction instead, and you're going to max out Conviction. So Conviction is kind of like your main source, your main aura for this particular build. And what you're going to do is you're going to max out the synergies for Holy Fire instead. So there's two synergies for Holy Fire, which is the Resist Fire and the Salvation Aura. So you're going to go to Resist Fire, which is right here, and you're going to max out Resist Fire, and you're going to max out Salvation. You're probably also going to build Zeal, because that's just the next logical step, and you're going to put some points into Holy Shield as well. I would recommend probably maxing it out. And now that we have the synergies built, notice that our fire damage, or rather our damage, has gone up quite considerably to 5,915 to 7,083. And the reason for this is because the synergies are having an effect on the auras coming from the items. Now, unfortunately, the auras coming from the items do not stack with the aura from the Paladin. So if I were to put on Holy Fire, for instance, it would not stack with the Holy Fire on the armors. What's actually happening here is I'm only getting the Holy Fire aura from the armors. If I take it off, you'll notice that my damage stays the same. So 7,167, and I put on Holy Fire, 7,083. It actually went down a little bit, which is kind of interesting. So basically, when it comes to these particular items, you usually are using them in tandem because by themselves they don't even work out very well. So as you can see here, just Hand of Justice by itself only 1,325 to 1,866 because it's only level 16 Holy Fire. By adding in the Dragon Shield, you got 16 plus 14, and you get another 14 from the second dragon. So that's 28. 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. So level 44 Holy Fire with this particular setup. And then the synergy, of course, is what is actually beefing up the damage. So, we have the massive amount of 21% times 20 on the Resist Fire and 10% times 20 on Salvation, which is a pretty massive boost in damage. We can actually multiply that out, and you can kind of see. So 21 times 20 is 420. Hey. And then 10 times 20 is, of course, 200 plus 420. So it's a total of 620% additional damage created by the synergy, which is pretty darn nice. Fire Mastery works very similarly. So if we were to take a look at Fire Mastery in Diablo 2, on a sorceress, Fire Mastery goes up really, really high. In fact, we need to go and take a look at Amazon Basin, because Amazon Basin has more numbers. And let's see here. So let's assume like a modicum amount of Fire Mastery. So 20 points, obviously. And then also we would want something more than that. So let's say maybe like plus 10 to skills at the very least. So level 30 Fire Mastery, which is going to be a total of 233% additional fire damage. So 233% on Sorceress. So as you can see, things like Fire Mastery and Synergies really beef up this item. So let's take a look at the item itself, shall we? And we'll look at the statistics. So we've got a level requirement of level 67, which is relatively high. A 100% chance to cast level 48 Meteor when you die. 100% chance to cast level 36 Blaze when you level up. Both of which are relatively useless. I suppose if you were a sorceress and you had Meteor synergies, that could be a really powerful Meteor, but you'd have to die for it to happen. You also have level 16 Holy Fire Aura when equipped, which is, of course, the mechanic we've been talking about this entire time. We have 33% increased attack speed, which is, of course, very nice to have on a weapon. It's definitely a weapon specifically that's revolving around elemental damage. We have 291% increased damage on this, which does vary between 280 to 330. As you can see, my Caduceus... wow, Caduceus also rolled 291%. That's crazy. It rolls between 280 to 330%. I swear I'm not cheating. That increase in damage is actually going to come in pretty handy, the physical damage, no matter what character you're using this on, because the physical damage is, of course, very nice. The physical damage is very nice. And having a massive amount of physical damage on a character who is also dealing elemental damage can be very, very effective. Obviously, because if you are dealing pretty good physical and pretty good fire, you can do Obviously pretty good against a monster who's fire immune or a monster who's physically immune because you'll have another element to go along with it. The variance is by 50%, so 280 to 330 is 50% variance. We also have ignores target's defense on here, which is kind of nice. It does mean that you will guarantee hit your targets that are not bosses. It does have a mechanic that essentially removes attack rating from the calculation. And the calculation does actually still include the level of the monster as well, so keep that in mind. And if you are not aware, basically how it works is you go up against a monster. If the monster is like level 85 or something like that, and you're level 67, there is going to be a rather large chance that you're going to be missing this target because of your level difference. And Ignores target's defense does not take into account level difference. We also have 7% lifesteal, which is always great to have on a melee weapon. Negative 20% enemy fire resistance, which is going to be absolutely clutch for helping you to deal more damage with your Holy Fire Aura. It's also important to note that since you're going to be running Conviction with this particular setup, the negative 20% enemy fire resistance will stack with Conviction and will help you break fire immunes. So, for instance, if Conviction will break a fire immune down to 90%, then negative 20% enemy fire resistance will help break that 90% down further to 70%. It does not, however, break resistances, so you have to rely on your Conviction to break resistances. But it does work in conjunction with Conviction if Conviction has already reduced the resistance below the immunity. We also have 20% Deadly Strike on here, which is always great to have on a non-critical strike character. Deadly Strike is the chance to deal double damage. We do have plus Conviction, Fanaticism, and Zeal on this, because this is, of course, the Caduceus. As you can see, the Berserker's Axe does not have those effects. We have Hit Blinds Target on here, which is always nice to have. Basically, any monster that is blinded has basically no chance of hitting you if they're ranged, and for melee, you have to actually walk within melee range of them for them to actually hit you. In Hell difficulty, however, Hit Blinds Target has a relatively low duration. So do keep that in mind. And we'll be playing around with this in a little bit. We also have Freeze's Target +3, which is, of course, coming from the Cham Rune. And that means that you are going to be shattering corpses with this particular item, so do keep that in mind. Now, Holy Fire, which is what this item is based around, is a very powerful ability that has a pulsing damage effect. And to get an idea of what that pulsing damage effect is, we're going to have to go to Amazon Basin and take a look at the level of this particular aura. So Amazon Basin, Holy Fire, and NiNi just ran off into the darkness. Alright, so I had to get Mr. NiNi. He's going to break everything over there. So we need the level of our Holy Fire. So we're going to have to run these calculations off the screen, just simply because, well, they don't show up on the screen. We don't get to see any of this stuff on camera, so to speak. So we are running a level 14 Holy Fire from the shield. We have another 14 Holy Fire from the armor, so that's a total of level 28. And then, of course, we also have Hand of Justice, which is level 16. So 28 plus 16. He's relentless. I swear, he's absolutely relentless. Level 44 is what we're looking at. So we have a level 44 Holy Fire Aura. The level 44 Holy Fire Aura adds a total of 555 weapon fire damage minimum, 567 fire damage maximum, and a minimum radial fire damage of 92 to a maximum radial fire damage of 94.5. Now, here's the interesting thing, though, is that they recently beefed up Holy Fire in one of the patches. So if we go to Diablo 2 Resurrected 2.4 patch notes, we will find that there was a increase. Now, they did increase it by 90%, but then they kind of scaled it back, and so now it's only an increase of 70%. So we're going to have to add to this number. So we were kind of in a pickle here. So let's go ahead and add to the radial fire damage, because that's what we're trying to figure out. We can see the actual fire damage on our character panel, but we can't see the radial fire damage. So we're going to have to figure this out. So we have a radial fire damage of 94.5 plus 70%. which is 160.65. So 160.65 is what we're looking at here for the radial fire damage. And then we have to add in our synergy bonus. So as we found out earlier, our synergy bonus was the total of 21%, which added up to 420, if I remember correctly, and then 200%. Plus... All right, so plus, 620%? 620%. So we're looking at a total fire damage of 1,156.68. And then, in the PTR patch notes, we got an increase to that damage by 200% if we were within melee range. If we add that in, we can do plus 200%. So we are looking at a total fire damage of 3,470 to the AoE. And we're going to go ahead and play around with this. So let's go ahead and kill poor Eldritch. He is like the butt of every joke that I do a video on. And first we're going to test out this AoE fire damage. Help if I put some points in Vitality. So as you can see, in Players 1, very, very effective. Let's take a look at this in Players 8. And let's go kill Shank this time. As you can see, the blind effect is working very nicely. And Shank is immune to fire. So we are in a position where, unfortunately, the damage is not going to do anything versus this particular monster. And this is a downside to this particular build, is that when you are up against a monster who is immune to fire, oh well. So let's go somewhere where they're not immune to fire. Let's go to Crystalline Passage real quick, and we'll take a look over there. And of course I run into more immune to fires. Exactly what I wanted. All the immune to fires. It's like they knew I was making this video. What are the chances I'd run into immune to fires and frickin' Crystalline Passage? As you can see, in Players 8, the build is pretty effective. Just in general because of the massive amount of fire damage that you deal on attack, as well as the massive amount of fire damage that you deal out on pulses. Now that they've kind of fixed the melee damage, the pulse damage, I am noticing that it only really does the double damage when you're strictly within melee range. Before it was very, I don't know, sort of scaling. If you're unaware, like the maximum radius of Holy Fire, at level 44, which is the level of this aura, we're looking at 32 and 2/3 of a yard. 32 yards is a lot. It is a lot of distance. I mean, it is like the entire screen past the edge of the screen, and honestly, it's moving into the next screen. That's how ridiculous 32 yards is. As you can see, that there are monsters on the very edge of the screen here that I'm still capable of hitting with the Holy Fire aura. You can't even see all the monsters that I'm capable of hitting, actually. And of course, I don't even have Conviction on. I'm the brightest man in the world. So let's go ahead and put Conviction on and really get a good test out of this. Silver-edged axe. And you know what? We might as well do the infamous test, shall we? We'll go into the cow level and we'll play around with the cows. We'll do players 1 cows, and then we'll also do players 8 cows. I feel like this is a really hot topic, and it's definitely something that you guys would probably like to see, right? So, so we'll go ahead and do that. I'll take a minute to go grab the legs, and then we'll make 2 cow levels, and we'll have some fun with this. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of damage I do walking around in players 8 stony field hell. It's such a passive build. It's such a literally stand there and just let everything die around you in a circle build. I mean, in this case, I can like run around. Now, of course, this is not an optimal build. I don't even have a helmet on. And you could obviously be running fire facets. You could be running all sorts of interesting equipment, which would help this build out. You could be running more fire damage, even, if that's what you wanted. You don't necessarily have to be building it the way that I've built it. I'm really just kind of testing out the weapon itself and not necessarily everything else involved. My leg. And if we're going to go into the cow level, I might as well get my cow. So why not? Bink. So this is Players 8 cow. And just to make sure that you guys are seeing this, so I'm not cheating, there's Players 8 cow. Pretty effective, to be honest. That's actually quite effective. Of course, I could be running a little bit more faster attack speed. I could be running maybe a little bit more lightning facets. Fire facets. Just in general, I could beef this up a little bit more. And quite honestly, it's already doing quite nicely. The AoE damage effect already is pretty impressive. And it's not outright killing anything in Players 8, of course, but it is dishing out a pretty significant amount of damage. Of course, I had amp damage on me the entire time from the previous elite pack that I was fighting. It's never a good deal to go into a fight like that with amp damage still on you from a previous monster, especially because you could end up with a monster who has much stronger effects that will combine very poorly with that amp damage. So keep that in mind. Alright, so let's get an idea of what kind of damage this aura does on its own. So here we have some cows. And we're just kind of pay attention. Some of these are minions. Oh, okay, never mind. Players 8 is rough, boys. Players 8 is rough. That's my second death in here. I'm just trying to do a video, cows. I have one of your own here. Why are you being so rude? I just want to test my holy fire aura on you and see if you die. I want to cook you slowly. Cooking you slowly with a hand of justice. Waiting my whole life. The real culprit.
It's locked.
Maybe I can actually find a helmet to put on. Alright, so let's test this in Players 1 as well. I feel like we've done enough testing in Players 8. That's pretty conclusive as far as evidence is concerned for what kind of, you know, ability this particular weapon has.
Hi there.
Hi there, my name's Jersey. So I'm going to go and I'm going to open up another portal for Players 1. Give me just a minute. Alright, so here we are in Players 1. I'm going to show you guys that it's Players 1 real quick before I go in. So we got Players 1. So we're going to play around with the same build. And as you can see here, extremely effective in Players 1. Just about everything pretty much dies in 2 or 3 pulses. Some of them even 1 pulse, kind of depends on what's going on. Honestly, at this point, I'm not really sure what it is that they're trying to do here. I mean, this is pretty much just a walking simulator. I don't even have to even actually use my abilities. I can just kind of just walk around and just, you know, just let it go. I can just walk around and just let things die. I mean, this is not really intriguing or fun gameplay in any way. This is literally just walking simulator, the game. Granted, in Players 8, you have to actually attack things. But also, keep in mind that I'm not fully set up for this build. If I was fully set up for this build, I would probably be running a helmet with fire facets or something like that in it. I would quite possibly be utilizing some other pieces of equipment as well. Just anything that would beef up my fire damage, beef up my holy fire, make me more defensible. I could be using skiller charms for combat. I could even potentially, you know, multi-spec into something else. Hey. A Gladius. Bloodletter Gladius. You know, when I build a Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, or Holy Shock Paladin, and I go back into normal difficulty, I expect this. This is what I expect. I expect monsters to die in 1 or 2 hits of the pulses. I don't expect that in Hell. I don't expect the pulses to kill things in Hell difficulty. Especially not in 1 or 2 hits. But literally that's about what it's doing right now. It's about 1 to 2 hits. Anything in the Hell difficulty is just simply dying. Especially if you're in melee range. So the melee range is the 200%. So if you are in melee range, it's a 1 hit. If you're not in melee range, it's 2 hits. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, especially when it's about a kind of a broken Holy Fire Paladin. Hand of Justice, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're interested in making a Hand of Justice, I would recommend that you probably make it in tandem with the dragons. You're probably going to need to make all 3, because quite honestly, it's not going to be very effective by itself, or even with one other dragon. It's really when you have all 3 together that it really comes into play. And if you do plan on making a dragon paladin, or a dragon sorceress, you're going to have to build Fire Mastery and the synergies involved. I would not recommend using a Hand of Justice or dragons on a character that is not a sorceress or a paladin. It really doesn't work very well on those characters because the Holy Fire aura just doesn't really do very well in general. You're talking about probably maybe 800 damage and fire damage from using all 3, which is not a lot. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching, and keep watching.